What's going on, people? Georgio Savvides here, founder of the Hip Hop Orchestra, as well as the host of the Hip Hop Orchestra Presents podcast. And I got a really exciting announcement to finally make with everyone, is that we have our very first official sponsor for the podcast. Now, they are an amazing company called Eldon's Vote, who are extremely dedicated in bringing you the very best in officially licensed merchandise from pop culture. And when I mean the very best, I mean the very best. They provide things like keyrings, caps, t-shirts, to Funko Pops, to statues from all over, such as DC, Marvel, Disney, The Mandalorian, Harry Potter, music artists from all over the place, and they are ridiculously good. I've got a couple of things to show you on offer at the moment. This trust me, their stuff is amazing. So, t-shirts, like I mentioned, like the one I'm wearing right now. It's got Rocky right here, which I absolutely love. Or, like I said, also got Funko Pops as well, 3.75 inches and 10 inches. I've got a couple of 10 inches right here for you. I've got Post Malone right here, and I've also got Biggie right here, who I absolutely love. These are so sick. Eldon's Vote, trust me, they are amazing. Now, I'm going to leave the link below in the video right here, and also in the description below as well in all future videos from the podcast. But trust me, Eldon's Vote are amazing. Website is www.eldonsvote.co.uk. Get in touch with them now and start buying ASAP. But also, before I forget as well, I just want to say the biggest thank you to Eldon's Vote for sponsoring the podcast. It means the absolute world to me. Thank you. And trust me, get in touch with them right now. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And peace. People, welcome to a brand new episode of the Hip Hop Orchestra Present, and I'm joined by someone absolutely amazing, Grammy winning composer Steve Sidwell. How are you, sir? You okay?
I'm fine, thanks, Georgia. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. How's things been? How you been okay?
Yeah, same as most people. I'm trying to get on with it.
Yeah.
And a lot of my life is self-isolation, sitting in my studio anyway. So
yeah, fair enough.
Something hasn't really changed, but
yeah. How's this year been for you though? You been okay?
For me personally, it's been difficult, professionally. I don't feel that it's as bad for me as it is for a lot of people. I feel very sorry for a lot of the industry. I mean, I've had some ongoing projects and some arranging to do. I mean, if we look at it in a business point of view, I mean, I'm way down like everybody else. But I think I like to try and think of a lot of the stuff that I'm missing out on is postponed rather than cancelled. That's what I'm hoping. So I've had time to get on with some other stuff. I've done some production or library music this year, as well as the usual kind of arranging and producing projects. But no, it's not been easy, and I've very much missed the human interaction and working with people. I always like to think that one of the skill sets I have is to get the best out of performers, and I enjoy working with singers and with musicians and with directors, choreographers, and that, I've done a little bit of that, but it's not been what it was, of course.
Of course. So what was the last thing that you worked on with, say, a whole group of people, musicians?
I did a couple of shows for the BBC this summer. They did a VE Day celebration and a VJ Day celebration, which were from one was from Horse Parade, the other was from Buckingham Palace. That was working with the BBC Special Events team. The musicians were from the military. We used exclusively various army bands. I mean, I believe there's 11, I think, or something that walked across it. And VJ in particular involved lots of marching bands, and then bringing artists in. I guess where I came in was working with various artists in helping them to be able to perform alongside the military and get the best out of the song and the best out of the performer. So you may have seen the shows. I thought the BBC did a very good job on those. And I did a Christmas video thing from the Royal Albert Hall with Catherine Jenkins, which was nice to employ some musicians. Shirley Bassey's album, got out and did that. Some of it I arranged, and we recorded some horns for a day, which was nice. But most of it, the rest of the time, I've pretty much been sitting in this room.
Oh, it's a nice room to sit in now.
Oh yes, great, yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
My studio, it's fine. You know, I've had my assistant here some of the time, and we've been doing stuff. It's given me a chance to do some archiving. You know,
Mm,
I probably, like a lot of people with studios, I had a couple of boxes full of hard drives,
yeah.
and of course, you know, you don't label them properly, even though you mean to at the time, and they
Yeah.
arrive, and you have every intention of filling out the label and putting exactly what it is, and then you just end up shoving a load of stuff on there and carrying them to different places, and you can't remember what's what. So my hard drives are nice and neat and tidy now. I know where my photographs are, and I know where various projects are, and I still can't find the one that I really wanted to find, of course.
You know what I've learned the hard way sometimes, just to name things as I go along, because I know what it's like to like unname things properly, and you think you'll remember them in the future, but you just don't. And then I can't. So if it's hard for me, I don't know what it's like for you, who's like literally works on so many different amazing things at the same time. It must have been a bit of a nightmare, sorting everything out.
It is, and I mean, look, hard drives have changed so much over the years. I mean, you know, 6 old drives went onto one small new drive. So
Mm.
I've got a big pile of drives that are empty, which are probably no good to anybody. If anybody wants any sort of slightly older drives that need them, they can have them, because you know, a drive that's this big,
Yeah.
you know, takes, you know, 100 megabytes or whatever. You know, now one this big is
Exactly.
8 terabytes. So you know, it's that, all of that stuff's changed since I started working with computers. You know.
Mm. Do you use online storage as well, things like Dropbox and those sort of things as well?
I do use Dropbox. Yeah. I mean, various things come and go. I find Dropbox really useful. Some organizations, I've worked for some of the bigger companies like Disney and Universal, and they don't like systems. They you know, some people feel there's some security issues with them. Um, I guess, you know, the work is quite private, but I mean, I don't know. I find it a good way of sharing files. And
Yeah.
security-wise, you know, I don't think one of my arrangements is like guarding the I don't know, guarding some kind of deep dark government secret. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's interested enough to make this possible security issues within Dropbox a major concern. So
Mm.
yeah, Dropbox, WeTransfer I use a lot.
Me too as well. Mm.
And like you and me at the moment, Zoom has been fabulous. Skype, um, FaceTime. I mean, yeah, all of those things. I get. I'm not really. I don't really do some of the social media platforms, but those obvious ones have been great. And working remotely as well has been a big thing, of course.
Yeah. You mentioned Disney there, Universal, who don't always like the kind of online sort of storage units. How do you get around that then, just to make sure that everything is super safe and ready to send over?
They have their own portals.
Okay.
All the time, so they have various ways they like to share information. So yeah, it varies from company to company, but you know, I guess they're dealing with not just bits of music. I guess they're dealing with all sorts of legal issues as well. So,
Mm.
so
I th-
I am.
do you have to sign, say, further waivers or contracts as well to say, I'll be using your portals for, say, X amount of pieces of work? Or does anything change in that way?
No, not especially. Some they just sent various things which you know, with links and passwords and password protected stuff. You know,
Okay.
I'm not really an encryption expert in any way. I just do what I'm told. But it's, you know, look, we all get sent stuff online. You have to sign into various things. It's always an extra few minutes of your time, isn't it? And sometimes
Yeah.
frustratingly it doesn't work. But that's what we've become. You know, we no longer do we sort of anxiously wait for the post to arrive, or I don't anyway. It's
Yeah.
in some, you know, sometimes in the distant past it's been exciting because you're waiting for, I don't know, a contract or a letter or a check or
Hmm.
something, you know. But now, God, post has become very boring, hasn't it?
It has.
Amazon is about the most exciting thing that's going to happen to them.
Oh, I love Amazon. I talk about one of the things you're working on at the moment. I know that I heard on Off the Record podcast that you're working on something that's coming out in 4 years' time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm. Yeah, that's a legal thing. I'm not allowed to discuss it, but it's a theme park in the States.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
they're developing a new theme park based on a certain subject, but unfortunately, we're not allowed to discuss it. So,
Oh, fair. But that sounds exciting.
sorry.
That sounds amazing now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it does at the moment. I mean, I was messaging one of the producers at Disneyland Paris last night. I've done a couple of shows for them over the last couple of years, and the parks are reopening in February is the plan at the moment. But crikey, that side of the industry's been hit so hard. Theatres,
Of course.
I'm in various discussions with various new musicals that people are keen to get going, but it's difficult timing.
Of course. I mean, have you worked on anything else that has taken kind of similar sort of time in terms of taking years to come out into fruition?
No, I've got to say that particular project you mentioned is an extraordinarily long time scale, but it's being built from ground up. And I think they want to actually get some of the installation, including the music, planned ahead of time, so they have the right things in the right place, and it's being done very meticulously. I guess, other jobs I worked on were a couple of years in the making. I mean, certainly Disney. I did The Lion King for Disney, and that was a good couple of years. Shows and musicals are often in development for a long time. The Carole King show I did was. I mean, I think that was a fairly quick one, but it was about 14 months, and these big projects, big production projects, take an awful long time. I had a meeting yesterday about a musical, which is quite exciting, and they said we are going to try and push this through. We're hoping it might be in a theatre by the beginning of 2023. So that's the kind of timescale that a lot of these big productions work on. Imagine the things involved. I mean. I think people are starting, which is good, to get music involved a little earlier. Often, I think it was one of the final things, if you like, to be considered. But I think if the earlier you're involved in the project, the better your planning can be, because you can often look at things and think, well, I wish this was like this, and we could have done this. But it's good to make sure you've got, say, the right space for the musicians, the right sound system for what they're trying to achieve as part of the storytelling. Even speaker placement and ideal sound scenarios, which if sets are designed and buildings are designed to house all this stuff, it's better for everybody.
Of course. And do you find it sometimes really difficult when you have such a long period to work on something? Do your ideas constantly change, or you must do, or do you find it okay?
That's a really good question. Yes, I always like to have a deadline. I think I work better. I think a lot of us do. If there's too long, sometimes, it can change my mind rather a lot of times. Luckily, most of my life I've been busy. I mean, I'm not sure how the next few months is going to roll out, but if I have a deadline and I'm working to that, it's great. You start fiddling with things. Look, usually you make it better. I remember once thinking that every time I made a change, I wasn't actually making things better. But I've changed my mind on that in recent years. I had a conversation about it. It really stuck in my head where it was with Trevor Horn, actually, the producer, and he was talking about this. And I said, "Do you think it's better when you fiddle it?" He said, "Every single time." And I thought, well, that's really good. If you're changing things for a reason and it's getting better, then it's good.
Yeah,
but having a long time to play with stuff, can change your focus as well, for sure.
Remember you saying it on the podcast where you said you're still learning what works and what doesn't work, because what you think might work might not work or resonate with other people, and vice versa. It's a hard thing to kind of get right, isn't it? Trying to see what exactly works.
Yeah, time planning is quite a big part of my life, actually. I mean, as someone that's always been a bit of a workaholic and probably taken on too much work at times, planning your time is really important. If you're producing, if you're doing a series of arrangements, I'm working on some arrangements now for the Perth Symphony Orchestra in Australia. They're doing an orchestral concert of 80s music in February. And, I looked at my contract, everything's fine. I had another look at it yesterday, and I realised that everything needs being finished by next week.
Wow.
Which, I kind of was I'm fine. I'm on schedule. I thought I was way ahead of the game, but in fact, I've got to put some extra hours in. But at least it makes me do it. I know what I've got to do for the next few days.
Yeah,
I'm working with a couple of other people on prospective things, but as you point out, if there isn't actually an end date in sight, sometimes it can be easy to get distracted and take on other stuff.
And talk about that kind of added extra pressure. Say, like you said, now with the Perth Symphony Orchestra, you've got next week to finish the thing now. So in some sort of situations, do you work better when you've got, say, less time to work on something where you don't have time to kind of procrastinate and just mess about. You've got just say
Well,
a week to do something and finish it.
yeah, I mean, you know, like we just said, if you have time to fiddle with things and tweak things and always make them better, I guess it's better. But I quite enjoy a time pressure. I do think it makes me come up with things. I mean, the famous writer's block thing. It does sometimes occur if I've got an album worth of material to orchestrate, for instance, and you get on one track. If I find I'm not coming up with anything, I will move on and put that one aside and come back to it. But I quite like a time pressure. You know, I quite enjoy that feeling. You know, it's some people don't, some people do. One of my best mates always says, I said, I can't meet you for a bit. I can't do it. I've got. He said, "Oh, you love it, mate." He said, "You thrive on it. Go for it." You know. And he always every time I say, "Oh God, I'm so busy," he'll say, "Oh, you thrive on it, mate. You thrive."
Yeah. And being a workaholic as well, do you prefer working on several different projects at once, or do you prefer just to work on, say, one project at a time?
I often find I have to work on several different projects at once. I mean, depending on the stages and how I've planned my diary. But I'm good at sort of thinking like, today I'm doing this, and I'll get on with it. I don't answer the phone, as probably people will tell you. You know, it's probably irritating for some people. But during the day, you know, I try and treat my own time as a day job, although it usually ends up being 8 a.m. till midnight nowadays.
Wow.
But I like to take some exercise, so I'll go out for a run or a walk, and I make my phone calls then. And I try and just sit here in the studio, concentrate and get on with things, focus. You know, I tend to, I've always had the TV on in the background, which is a sort of a habit I've always had. The sound's usually muted, but I quite like nature programs. So I've got a series called Equator running permanently at the moment, and I catch bits of it through the day. Probably by the time I've played it 10 times through the series, I've caught most of it.
Nice.
But yeah, I just get my head down. You know, I'm lucky. I've got this very nice space to work in. I don't really get too many disturbances, but yeah, I do knuckle down and focus and go for it. You know, every couple of hours, wander upstairs, make myself a coffee, and come back down.
Nice. I was talking to a good friend of mine actually, and another fantastic composer, Alexandra Harwood, who's worked on several different projects as well. And she says that when she walks the dogs in the morning or goes for her little morning exercise, sometimes her best ideas come up that sort of time. Does that happen for you as well when you go for your run or your?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's incredibly important. I think, you know, there's been a lot made of it in lockdown for people's mental health as well. It's a difficult profession. If things aren't going well and you're not busy, you can find yourself very, you know, down and doubting your ability. You know, it's happened to me many times. It still does, and probably always will. Going out, yeah, I agree with her. Going out walking. Funny enough, I'm getting a dog as well, which is a new thing coming up there. Because I've always enjoyed my exercise, but you know, with increasing years and demands on your body, I sort of tend to walk more than anything nowadays. But yes, absolutely, get away, walk away from your situation, go and do some exercise, go and see your friends, go and have a drink, go and have a coffee. Something. It's definitely good to have a break, and I like, you know, having a break on my own as well, and thinking. And I'm a fly fisherman as well. I enjoy fly fishing. So
really?
When I go out fishing, I'm always thinking. I'm always thinking about music and coming up with ideas, and I'm always singing ideas into my phone. You know, I'm walking along, I think, what about that? Idea. Sometimes I get home and I play it back and think, what was that? I've got no idea what it was. Sorry about the.
That's okay. But I'm exactly the same as you, though. When I sing my ideas into the phone, hear back the next day or later on that day, thinking, what the hell did I just sing back to myself? That's terrible.
Did you go to school in Barnet?
I went to East Barnet secondary school, but then went to college after that in Welwyn Garden City. But I know that you went to Ashville, didn't you?
Yeah, I went to Ashville.
Yeah. I know you said at the time wasn't the best kind of school, but now it's much better. How was it for you when you were growing up?
Well, that's probably a bit unfair of me to say that in a way, because I know it became a very good school.
It did,
I think it was a secondary modern school. I think the year before I went, you know, there was before the comprehensive system came in, so there were grammar schools. Because I'm afraid I'm that old, and then there was secondary modern, which were the second tier, if you like, and so it had somewhat of a fairly rough reputation. But they had a they had some good stuff, and the music department was great. There
Mm.
was a guy called Alan Lumsden who sadly passed away just last week. He had an obituary in the Telegraph, and he was a very well-educated man and an enthusiastic teacher. And so we had a brass band and we had an orchestra, and it was, that part of the school was really good. And I won a scholarship to the Royal College of Music as a junior, and then I did a classical course at the Guildhall on trumpet. So education-wise, I can't complain about Barnet really. Borough of Barnet was fine to me, and I used to play football and rugby and stuff for the school and cricket. So yeah, no complaints there really. I think I say it wasn't an amazing school in some respects, but it certainly has improved over the years. And I'm pretty sure from when it became a comprehensive school, they worked to that end.
Mm. And you also mentioned that your dad was a sax player, wasn't he, as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. And also your nan was a piano player as well, and piano teacher?
Yeah, I'm a third generation musician, really, yes.
Yeah.
Got two brothers that are professional musicians as well, Neil and Richard. So, my life was always about music. My dad was part of the big band era and the jazz era. He went on to do studio work, and he was a writer and arranger, and he did West End shows, and he used to teach and play in clubs and work very hard to bring up his three boys. So I grew up surrounded by musicians. I've always enjoyed the company of musicians and that feeling. I was, even when I was growing up, I thought my dad's friends were really cool.
Yeah.
I think my dad was certainly cool. I think I was one of the few people that thought their dad was really cool.
What? And you
very
mentioned
hard, very hard for your kids to think you're cool.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned that you've done 39 West End shows as well. Is that correct?
39 different West End shows was the number that I was always told. Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, did you get the chance to watch a lot of these performances growing up and learn a lot? Actually? Yeah.
Yeah, we worked together. I mean, he started a big band called Young Jazz at the time. Very much as a vehicle for me and my brother Neil at the time, which he was a bit younger to play with. But he used to take me along and sit in the pits.
Wow.
The orchestra pit. So I used to I was a trumpet player who was a sax player, but I used to sit in the pit with these amazing musicians, and I used to think, this is amazing. I didn't even realise there was a show going on up there. So this is all I need. It was just great. Shows like Chorus Line, and I used to go at Drury Lane. I used to go and sit in the pit, and then he used to take me to the pub, probably when I was too young to go, and have a Coca-Cola and see all these musicians sort of telling their stories and the great characters of the day. And then my dad and I worked together professionally. At times we did a show together. I did some shows in my early days playing, and I'm still involved in theatre. I also remember doing the Charlie Watts Orchestra. Charlie had a big band, and my dad ended up playing baritone sax. We toured America together twice.
Wow.
So we had a great professional relationship as well as our personal relationship.
That's amazing. You've had shared so many memories together then growing up, performing together, going to the pub, sharing stories like you said. You must have had so many memories.
Absolutely, yeah.
What were some of your favourite ones that you got to witness and perform as well? What were some of your favourite ones?
Oh, I remember if the Charlie Watts albums are available. He used to be featured playing Stardust, and I was really, I was very proud of him. And I mean, just those things your dad does, and like I say, to have that relationship that we were on the road together and hanging out together as well, with lots of other people. I mean, Charlie's big band was an incredible mixture of sort of younger and not so young musicians, and it was the biggest big band ever. It was about 35 people in it.
Wow. 35.
Yes, we did those tours. I did a show with my dad in the West End, so we used to, even drive to work together in the evenings. In the days when it was kind of reasonable to drive into the West End and drive back at night. I'm not sure it is now. I don't drive in London at all anymore.
Yeah, there's no point now. It's literally impossible. But
no, it's supposed to be a ghost town, but the couple of times I've experienced central London traffic recently, it's been absolutely horrendous. I'm not sure
I think I've done it once in my life to come pick my dad up, and I'm not doing it again. So that's it. But growing up with your dad, obviously being a fantastic musician, and your nan as well, did they kind of give you any amazing advice or things to work towards and a thing to look out for just in case?
Yeah, I mean, my nan's relationship was not really much of a musical one, really. but she'd been a piano teacher and played piano in church, etc. I think the important thing about having a dad like we have was him introducing us to such great music and showing us things, and showing just for someone to become a musician, the things you listen to and the things that shape your career, are possibly, very important, and what makes you different to your friends that were listening to various kinds of music, and an appreciation of how music was made. And you don't have to understand music to enjoy it, but sometimes things trigger in us that we hear something and we say, wow, that is really something, and you're really interested. And if you have the kind of musical sort of gene in you that makes you want to learn about that stuff, then I think I certainly wouldn't have had a chance of becoming anything like I am without him, because of the introduction to everything. I mean, he even played me Threshold for the first time, which was an album in 1973 by Patrick Williams. And it took me many years to actually get in touch with Patrick to say that his album had shaped my life. It was one of those. It's called Threshold. And for any writer or instrumentalist, certainly in the sort of jazz field or commercial field or writer, Patrick's work is incredible. Sadly, Patrick passed away. We became very close. He became almost like a mentor to me, a second father, if you like. And he was a very private man who lived in Los Angeles, where I lived for a while. And he seemed to take to me, and we became very close friends. I used to go and hang out with him, and it was. Yeah, it was great times, and I miss him very much. I'm still in touch with his wife and his family.
I'm sorry to hear the news, though.
Oh no, yeah, that was very sad, his passing. As was my father's, and anyone that you lose, So
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. And yeah, I think anyway, but my father helped me find that path for sure. If nothing else, that was. The great thing about having a musician, the things he listened to. I remember he would call me out of bed sometimes to say, "Hey, you're awake. Come and listen to this. Buddy Rich is on the TV. Who's that?"
Wow, yeah.
And, I mean, most dads wouldn't do that, would they? Wouldn't get excited about seeing Buddy Rich. And I saw Buddy Rich. I ended up playing in Buddy Rich's band.
Wow.
Which is,
what was that like?
Terrifying.
Yeah.
I was only 23 or something. He was over here, and he had a disagreement with one of the trumpet players, and there was a saxophone player, Scottish mate of mine called Jay Craig, in the band, and went home and said, "Well, phone Steve Sidwell," and they phoned me, and I joined the tour.
Wow.
So, yeah, amazing.
That must have been.
I don't know how much you know about Buddy Rich. He was a fairly fearsome.
Yeah. No.
character.
Yeah.
He's quite famous for being sometimes a little angry with his band.
Yeah. Did you experience anything like that on your behalf?
I saw it pretty much straight away, and it was pretty terrifying. But look, the guy was absolutely amazing. Incredible player, incredible band leader, and yeah, I sort of full of admiration for the guy. He had his way, but
of course. Do you really feel like your kind of musicianship and overall performance went up a lot when working on that tour and with him as well?
I think every job I've ever done, I've learned something. I teach now. I teach at Vienna at the Conservatoire, and I teach arranging and musicianship. And one of the many things I like to say is that the day I don't learn anything is the day I'm going to pack it in, because the thing about music and doing this is that you're always learning, always improving. Yes, and surely experiences like playing with Buddy Rich and his amazing band was a steep learning curve. But there's been many. There's a learning curve all the time. Someone called me this morning, my great mate, and said, "Have you heard this track? Have a listen to it." Someone's just brought out. I won't actually discuss it because it was more one of those sort of slightly negative ones and positive. Why have they done that? And I had to listen to it, and I couldn't have said, "Well, I think they've done that because of this, because of that." And you understand, but you listen and think, okay, well, if that's what people want, You know, I mean, I really believe there's no such thing as rubbish music, or you know, and I hear this a lot of people say, "Oh, he's awful." I said, no. You can't say that. It's not just because you don't like it does not make it all. Because someone's given that a lot of love, someone's worked on that. You know, you have to listen to it and appreciate it. If you don't like it, that's fine. Move on. Because if we all like the same piece of music, it would be an incredibly boring world.
That's exactly
So,
what I say as well.
but you know, don't just say it's awful. It's tempting occasionally, but generally, I try to understand why people have done things the way they've done them, and also, you know, if it's in the pop genre and people are being played on radio, I've got to try and understand what people are listening to, because it's still relevant to me. You know, I still work with people that want airplay, and I need to understand what you know. Things change, things move all the time, and a very, very clever friend of mine, who's very smart, you know, pointed out to me recently. We were listening to some music, and we were, you know, saying, you know, various good things and what makes it good, and excuse me. And he said, "Of course, you've forgotten the main star of the show." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, the technology." And I thought, "Do you know what? You're absolutely right, because without that, it you know, we were watching a YouTube video performance, and it was absolutely amazing. But really, it was done. The technology was done so well that possibly live, it was done for that platform, and technology has become an enormous part of what we all do and what I do. You know, I'm sitting here. I've got iPad, laptop, iPhone, two mainframe Apples with 4 screens. You know, I mean, you know. Oh, and there's two old Apples in there that don't work. I mean, it's just, you know, I'm not trying to be an advert for Mac. I mean, I'm on their business program, but they hardly give you anything off. But we're surrounded by technology, so that's an important part of music making. And when I was at school, they started computer science. Was actually when I was in my 6th form, I believe. So I didn't take it. You know, it was of no interest to me as a musician. You know, little did I know. But how important that's become. I don't know how I got into this subject. Sorry.
That's okay. I love to hear these sort of kind of things. But let's talk about that kind of software as well. Do you go on, sorry?
Yeah, and so certainly with computers, I'm learning every day. You know, you know, I wasn't the original computer generation, but I've had to become reasonably tech. You know.
Do you feel like you've been able to save more time now with technology, say for writing out scores, for instance? Do you use things like Sibelius and Logic now, as opposed to?
Yes, I do. Does it save more time? In the long run, yes. I mean, the fact that you create sort of files that you keep rather than just paper, yes. Yes. I mean, the actual writing process, I'm not so sure. You know, good. My mate Dave Arch, who does Strictly, you know, he says he doesn't find it faster, or did for a while. You know, and he's a brilliant musician and a brilliant writer. You know, and incredibly quick and knowledgeable, and I think if I started writing on paper now, I'd probably be slow. But I did it probably right up until 8-9 years ago. But really, I had a whole room of scores, and I burnt them a while back.
Really?
You know, there's just a load of storage of stuff that we put. Everything's in PDFs, everything's in computer form. So the storage aspect is good. Being able to get the things, because obviously I've got arrangements that I hire out to people, and the technology of being able to ping people a load of PDFs they can print again, that all saves time. The actual artistic process, I mean, definitely with recording, Pro Tools, Logic, whichever platform you're using, is far quicker than tape ever was. You know, I don't miss tape. I wasn't working in such a studio guy insofar as producing and recording stuff when tape was around. But speaking to engineers, you know, old school, I mean, you know, there's a slight romantic thing about how tape sounded, but you know, I don't miss that process of having tape. It certainly saves time on recording front. Writing wise, yeah, I mean, cut and paste is interesting, but we kind of had a way of doing that anyway. So there are some interesting new programs like StaffPad, which my mate Dave Hearn has developed, where you can write into the program and then play out very good samples. So this is the other thing that's happened, is that people want to hear demos of everything you do. You know, back in the day when you turned up at a studio with a score under your arm and some paper, they were thrilled to see you. Now they want to have heard what you're going to play already in, you know, as high quality as they possibly can. And that's becoming industry standard. So you can't do one without the other. So
Yeah.
I guess the answer to your question is a long-winded yes.
And talk about the kind of that most realistic sounds. What do you use? Do you use something like Spitfire or Omnisphere, that kind of things to make sure you get that kind of industry quality sound? What do you use?
Yeah, I mean, I'm mostly working with orchestral samples, Spitfire, Berlin. I use all the East-West stuff, various stuff for various projects. Rhythm section programming. I mean, I've got loads of things. East-West, yeah, it just changes. It just changes all the time. But orchestral-wise, I've been using Cine strings quite a lot recently.
Oh, really?
And Berlin, but it just depends on the project. And often you say to people, how do you want your project to sound? Do you want it to sound very orchestral and pomp? Would you like it to sound more like a film orchestra? Do you want it to sound more like a small pop orchestra? So, I've got my go-to set templates and sets of things in various different programs. I'm mostly working Pro Tools, Logic, StaffPad, and Sibelius are probably the main ones.
Amazing. And going back to kind of the writing process as well, have you kept any elements of your old writing process to now, or have you kind of transitioned completely into a new way of writing music with technology as well?
I like to think that the technology hasn't changed the way I write music. I mean, physically, the actual input has, but actually, the music, no. I've very much tried to hold on to, if you like, the school traditions of making arrangements. I think probably one of the downsides of the technology is it's very easy to do a bad arrangement, and it's very easy to input things. And I think we live in a time where people want fairly instant gratification with many things, and I think there's people out there buying this software thinking that means they can write music. You can to an extent, and you can get away with a lot, but there's a huge difference with having that knowledge. That theory and that knowledge should always be taught. It's there for a reason. And there are people that will sort of instinctively do things, but I would say that it hasn't altered my actual writing technique at all. And I'm very aware of keeping certain things going and not being lazy because you have a mouse. It's really important to me.
And you mentioned theory there as well. I remember you saying actually when you're growing up, you learned piano and violin as well, but didn't quite take them as seriously as you should have done. Really, do you do you feel like you've learned or caught up to what you would like to have learned about piano and theory now, or do you feel like you could have taken it earlier?
I wish I'd worked harder at the piano because I'd like to be a better pianist than I am. The trumpet took over my life, and I became a good trumpet player. Yeah. I was never a particularly good piano player, and still am not a particularly good. The violin was a phase. I learned the violin early on because you don't really pick up a trumpet generally that young, and I was a terrible violinist. And I could never really press down the strings properly either because I managed to chop the end of my finger off. Which
I'll get into that actually.
But I managed to ride into a wall with my bike when I was a kid, and so I've never liked pressing down on that finger. It makes me go all squidgy thinking about it. So the violin was awful. And then, like I say, luckily at my school, the brass thing was very good, and I was a very good brass teacher, and the school wasn't blessed with huge funds, and I happened to have a trumpet, which was my great uncle's, who grew up with my dad, and he'd left my dad this trumpet. So if you owned an instrument, I'm going to sneeze.
Bless you.
Thank you. If you owned an instrument, you're playing that one, mate, because we haven't got enough to go around. So I was given the trumpet, which wasn't really my first choice, but like I say, it was obviously the fair thing to do if you actually owned one, and give somebody else a chance to learn something else.
And going back to your performances as well, you've also worked with some of my favorite artists of all time, Stevie Wonder being one of them actually as well. Stevie Wonder, George Michael, obviously Robbie Williams as well. What was it like working with such respected artists and amazing ones at that as well?
For George Michael and Robbie Williams were fairly similar experiences. I mean, the work I've done with people like Stevie Wonder has generally been quite different. So I'll have been part of a setup. So he's brought in to do a TV show. I'm in the TV band, or he's brought in to do a concert. You know, I can separate artists that I've worked with as a sort of backing performer in a way, and then people like Robbie and George I've had a far more intimate working relationship with, if you like. You know, it's a rather different thing. So as a studio musician, yeah, I was lucky to work on, you know, the old school TV. The Royal Variety Show was on last night, so I used to play on those. You know, there'd be a whole host of artists come in that you got to play with, which was an incredibly exciting thing. And then special concerts, sometimes they'd hire backing bands or whatever, and you get a call to do that. And then I was very involved with brass sections, going on tour with various bands from, you know, Wham to The Who to Mac Bianco, and then Robbie. And then Robbie and George probably are two slightly different artists for me, because they were both artists that I worked with, you know, on a one-to-one basis. You know, George from extremely early on, even pre-Wham in his career, when he was a young songwriter and didn't live far from where I grew up and where you live now. And we worked together on some things and carried on, and really, you know, right to the end, I was still working with him on excuse me, on various projects, doing some orchestration, doing some conducting for him. And likewise, Robbie, I've you know, been involved with arranging music for him and a little bit of co-production since Let Me Entertain You, you know, all of those years. I think there's, you know, maybe only 2 albums I wasn't involved in, and when the swing stuff came along, that was my, you know, we already had a relationship, so with my knowledge and my experience of doing that, I guess I was hopefully a fairly natural choice. And, you know, I had a trust. You know, a lot of it's building up a trust with people. You know, it's it becomes personal as well as business when you're working for a long time. So you know, you have to do the right things and behave in the right way, and understand their position, which is extremely different to my position, you know, and their perspective.
I was listening to the Robbie Williams albums last night, Swing Both Ways and Swing When You're Winning, both amazing albums. What were they like to work on?
Oh, yeah, amazing. Really great times, you know, up there as highlights of career. I think it's fair to say that when you're working with someone that's, you know, as big an artist, you know, you have the luxury of a nice budget. You can kind of, you know, write your own dream, if you like. So recording in Capitol Records with the best musicians in Los Angeles, you know, and then, you know, now I'm sitting here COVID and I'm phoning up mates to record some trombone and sax in their own bedrooms. They're just as good at players, but it doesn't have that overall kind of quite that magic, exciting factor. So yeah, working on Rob's swing stuff was just fantastic. You know, I did a bit last year. We did some stuff on the Christmas album, and you know, he's one of those pop artists, one of the few really, in my opinion, that has a real good understanding of swing, jazz, whatever you like, that kind of music. He grew up with it, and it's a different medium. It's different to pop music, and I think, you know, some pop artists have fallen a little flat trying to do that, and, you know, others do it well. But I think Rob in particular has a really good understanding of that storytelling, crooning, swing, you know, romance, that genre of music. You know, probably largely like me through his dad. You know, Pete, who was a cabaret singer, crooner, whatever you want, like club singer, and I'm pretty sure his story would be similar to mine of how he got to listen to it. It's like, here, son, listen to this, you know, and it stood him in good stead. And, you know, the thing I'm most proud about really of that swing album is that it seemed to reignite that music, and bring it to a whole new generation of people, and a lot of artists and songs that may have disappeared. I think Rob was largely responsible for relaunching, you know, a whole catalogue of amazing music to a whole new generation.
When you work on such, say, big budget projects like that, do you get the chance to kind of handpick who you want to work with in terms of musicians, or do you say, okay, I need 20 brass members for this particular project, and then let them choose who they work with?
I pretty much work in collaboration with contractors, and, you know, I usually know who I want.
Okay.
You know, and you know, I even find myself writing specifically for certain players. You know, I've always maintained a close relationship with the musicians I work with. I mean, it doesn't always work out if I'm in a place that I don't know the musicians, but I'll still try and do research and get the right people for the right job. That's important. Um, yeah. I mean, you know, it hasn't always worked out. You get in various situations for various reasons. Sometimes aesthetic, sometimes whatever. But if you haven't got the right people there to do the job, then your job's much more difficult, and the end result is not so good. And people like me, we work on our results. You know, our reputation is everything. Things need to go well. You know, if you haven't got the right musicians that are equipped to do a job in a certain time, you know, big budget projects, you know, musicians, you know, they need to be the finest. They're under pressure. You know, you have a whole orchestra sitting in there. You got someone that can't really play their part. You know, the thing's ruined, and that's expensive
Of
and
course.
embarrassing and disappointing and awful for them as well, you know. And these aren't necessarily people that aren't brilliant musicians, but they might just be in the wrong place for them. You know, there's certain drummers that are absolutely world class, amazing people, but you wouldn't book them on a big band session, you know, under a time pressure. Likewise, the big band drummer, you probably wouldn't put on a 6-day stint at Madison Square Garden with a heavy rock band. You know, it's different things. And I don't know everything, but the stuff I'm involved in, I'm very meticulous, and I do a lot of research. And I work with a couple of trusted contractors, both here and in the States, who know what I want, and we work through a list.
Brilliant. And you mentioned about obviously having the right sort of people for the right projects. Have you come across any kind of incidents where things did go a bit wrong, or has it been quite fairly smooth sailing for the most part?
Yeah, it's mostly been smooth sailing. I mean, you get the odd thing where something hasn't worked out. You can usually fix it. You know, you can usually fix any kind of problems. Um, I'd say the biggest problems we've had is when systems go down, when computers go down, and things in studios when you haven't got time to record something. A couple of times I've got there in my life, and someone said, "Steve, that's not what I wanted." You know, they've heard my arrangement, and you know, you calmly say, "Okay, I'm very sorry. You know, what do you want?" And that's usually I can only remember that happening once, really, and that's with someone I work with and still work with a lot. So he obviously wasn't too upset with me, but I hadn't got the message properly for whatever reason. I won't say it was his fault.
Ah.
uh, it got sorted out, and yeah, I mean, I have had, you know, I sometimes have players and musicians thrust upon me, and never with any disrespect to them. You know, look, musicians are amazing people. They dedicate their life, you know, to an instrument or to an art form, and they spend countless hours on their own, you know, trying to make that work. You know, a totally unpaid apprenticeship, you know, for what, you know, for love, really, and for love of music and wanting to do this. So you know, no one has more respect for musicians than I do. But unfortunately, you know, you, like I say, occasionally you know, for various reasons, the wrong musician is likely to end up in the wrong place. You know, I was a really good trumpet player, but you know, put me on first trumpet at the London Symphony Orchestra, and I'd be a terrible trumpet player. You know, it's horses for courses, and so no, nothing's gone. You know, planning's always good. I've been overseas to some places where maybe the standard isn't quite what we'd expect in Los Angeles or London or New York. You know, it's a different thing. I did once work. I'll just tell you once. I did once work with an orchestra. I probably have to be careful, I say, but it wasn't in a place that's, you know, let's say on the map for the world's leading symphony orchestras. And it was a commercial project, and I think I was a bit jet lagged, a bit tired, and we rehearsed these pieces, and the violas were just simply awful. I mean, just beyond awful. And I said, in the kindest way I possibly could, I said, you know, ladies and gentlemen, you know, if there's any chance before tomorrow evening, and they're evening rehearsals often, and you know, when they book you with evening rehearsals, because everyone has a day job, so you know they're not professional musicians. Any chance you could have a little look, you know, maybe do a bit of practice, work a little bit, you know, for yourselves and for your colleagues and for me, I'd really appreciate it. You know, and I was met with a sort of sea of blank faces, particularly from the principal, and of course, it was in a country where I didn't realise there was sort of military service. And the next evening, turned up for rehearsal, you know, and I got on the sound. I looked down and said, "So have you done any?" Ah, and the guy was sitting there in his army uniform with his gun still attached
Really?
to him. I did look, he sort of patted his gun as if to say, "Don't talk to me like that." Viola's are sounding great tonight, guys.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I talk about sort of America actually. I remember you lived in LA for a bit. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
It was it was a certain time in my life when personal things happened. I'd always liked the idea of being in LA and have thought of moving on several occasions, and I kind of found myself there. It's a city full of amazing talent, and it's a great place to live. I think I didn't really make any sort of inroads into the film industry, which I guess I was one of the things I wanted to do, although I kept extremely busy. And I did some great projects there and some great projects on Broadway. At the same time, I was still busy in the UK. Work was coming in, so I was coming back here a lot to do work. Um, I wonder, if I want to put, me, if I didn't sort of give it the 100% thing, if there was a bit of me that was always thinking, well, I'm still UK based. But no, I really enjoyed it. It's a great city with great musicians, and I've got many great friends there that I really, really admire, and certainly the high end of the industry there is the best, along with London and New York. It's just, there's so many great things happen with great recordings, amazing people, amazing musicians. I think there's also a lot of maybe a lot of people drawn to Los Angeles for reasons, it's the old story, isn't it? People go there with a lot of hope. So I think surrounding all the greatness and everything, there's a lot of people that struggle there as well. I don't think all that glitters is not gold.
How long were you there for when you lived there?
About 4 years.
Oh, 4 years. Okay.
I've been going in and out for I first went there with Nick Hayward, and heck, I went over back in 1980, I guess, maybe 1981. I've been going in and out of there for years, and I still go. I still have my work visa, and I still do some projects there, and I still really like it.
Brilliant.
And yeah, I would say it's a fantastic place to live, and the industry is fantastic there, and if you can make it and make a living there, it's a great place to be.
Amazing. Did you move to New York as well, or was it just LA? I know you mentioned New York as well.
I spent time there. I mean, particularly doing the Carole King musical, Beautiful. I spent a lot of time on Broadway. I had an apartment there for a while, so I lived there for a few months, if you like.
Yeah.
Again, I've been going to New York for years and years. I mean, it's that never drains of excitement for me. When you arrive there, it's just like, I'm from London. I'm a city. I mean, New York and London are probably my two favourite cities. Los Angeles, there's loads of places. I like most cities actually.
Yeah.
I've rarely been to cities I don't like. You find it's like the music. You find the good and you find the art. Every city has its presence. What did surprise me about LA is how much art there is there as well. I mean, my situation, took, actual art and fashion and as well as music and culture. It's a little more spread out, and you have to root it out in a little way. I mean, it's not a surprise to the people that know, but generally it's probably not thought of as that kind of place, but it's an amazing city for art and culture, of all kinds.
Can I know that you mentioned that you're into art, aren't you, as well yourself, that you love art?
I like what I like. I'm no kind of expert, but I have in recent years become more and more interested in art. Yeah, my daughter is an architect, but she was very much an art-based sort of student, and I became friendly in LA and before with some artists who kindly sort of got me involved, and photographers, rock and roll photography, and I happened to mix and get friendly with a few of those people, which ended up meaning I got invited to various events and galleries and openings, and I took an interest, and I really enjoy that side of things. I've always actually enjoyed fashion and art to an extent that as someone that was not a pop person or a pop star or something, but I was a backing musician or something. I sometimes felt that they were important things to look at and understand. As I just said to you about today, you know, looking at a track and trying to work out why someone's done what they've done with the music, because you know it wouldn't be what we normally term as why would you do it like that? Surely it would have been better. And trying to work out the reasons. And by the same time, you know, music is often, you know, driven by art and fashion, always has been, you know, literature, what's going on. So I've always tried to take a keen interest in those things. You know, I mean, even possibly, you know, if you were slightly trendy and fashionable in some of the parts of the music world I was, then you were almost giving in to the reasons that things weren't maybe as highbrow as maybe some people thought they should be.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never been of that opinion. I've always thought that you have to go with the trends. You have to follow what's going on. I mean, if you want a dead end career and you want it to stop and you're happy just where you are, but I still think there's things to learn. I still think, you know, there's advancements to be made. You know, we're looking for the next big thing in music, the next exciting thing, the next thing that's going to work and please people. You know, there always feels there's something else. So I think it's all connected.
Yeah, you mentioned about the next big thing. I know that one of the things you're working on is helping the next generation of musicians and composers and so forth come up now. How are you finding that so far?
I really like it. You know, the work I'm doing. Unfortunately, you know, my main teaching, which is in Vienna, was unfortunately all cancelled this year because of COVID.
I'm sorry to hear.
Yeah, it's a shame. So hopefully that'll reconvene next year. I really like working with young people, and you know, it's selfishly it's good for me as well because you know my kids are my kids, and they you know they don't think I'm cool, of course. So you know they don't interact with
I'm
me.
sure they do.
But and they're busy, you know. But you know, to work with young people in my profession, my kids haven't come into the music profession, and get their ideas. You know, I think I learn as much from them as they do for me. I think there's a slight gap between many of. I think teaching platforms have improved, you know, incredibly over the last 20 years. You know, in respect of commercial music, I think the gap which I've tried to fill on the course I do, and I'd like to do a bit more of it is how to take an idyllic, if you like, learning situation, college course into the real world, into the profession. You know, it's a business as well. You know, I mean, maybe I'm a businessman as well. Maybe you have to be nowadays part of that. But you know, any musician can go and sit in their room and write what they want anytime they want. If they want to turn it into a career, you know, bring up a family, and there's a slightly different mindset, you know, and you've got to work in less than ideal situations. You know, people say how many people can I get away with for a big band? You know, my normal reply will be, well, look, it's in the title, it's big and it's a band. So everything you take away from it, you know, there's a reason these people are there. But of course, in the real world, with budgets and with you know commercial dealings, well, you probably want to be sitting in a glorious black leather chrome filled room in a Soho basement somehow. But the reality is that we're sitting in our houses, you know, in rooms that we've adapted, you know, which is commerce and the way finance is driven. So likewise with music, some people will say they want a full orchestra when we've got the money for 28 people, and you have to, you know, I like to think part of my skill set is making the best job happen for those producers, for those directors, you know, for the performers, for the audience, for everybody, you know, with their brief, their wish list, with what they have available to spend. You know, I can only do so much, but it's a very important part of the thought process is to understand singers and artists and how to work and how to collaborate, you know, without selling a soul or being compromised to the extent that you're not happy with your work. Is to give them what they want, you know, and make them feel comfortable, even if it's not quite what they want, but you let them think it's what they want, if that makes any sense.
Of course, yeah. And I just froze it for a second. Sorry, but I know how busy you are. I want to ask a few more questions, but I'll stick to one for now. I know how busy you are. But you mentioned Beautiful earlier, and I see something behind you that I want to get into is your Grammy that I want to get into as well.
Oh, did I place it where you can see it? Oh.
I'm so glad you did. I'm so glad you did.
Yeah, I was doing all these Zoom calls, and someone said to me, he said, "Why have you got that there?" So I said, "Okay, yeah, it was over there."
Yeah.
Oh
That's what
yes,
you hear like
oh
this.
that thing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so wanted to get into that so badly. You mentioned beautiful, you won the Grammy. I mean, how was it? Or obviously, a massive, huge congratulations for winning it. Well, what's the feeling like when you win a Grammy?
Do you know, it was very exciting. I've been nominated for quite a few things, and I've won a few awards, and there's a few sitting out there. But I mean, the big ones. I mean, I've been nominated for a Tony, nominated for an Emmy, and been nominated for a Grammy. I'm not sure if the Oscar thing will ever come about, ETOG they call it. Lost the others, and I was on a drama desk, and I didn't win any of them, and it was kind of surprisingly disappointing. I always thought I'd be the sort of guy that would say, well done, mate, you won. I was thinking, I was unbelievably childish about it, and I was very disappointed with myself. I was very excited when I won the Grammy. I mean, I did a certain amount of work. There were three of us involved in that Grammy, and I probably, I'm not sure if I did a third of the work. Really, they were great guys. But yeah, it was a real thrill. It's nice to get some recognition. I mean, people in various sports and with honours lists, and some people have different opinions and say they didn't want it. Look, it's clearly nice to be recognised for something you've done, and obviously the Grammy institution is one that all musicians aspire to. So yes, it was really nice. I'm very, very proud to have done that, and it meant a lot to me.
Can imagine. I mean, what is the process there when you get nominated for a Grammy? Is it just like say like reach a certain amount of say target or ticket sales or album sales or
You know what?
forward? Or is that coming more?
I've got no idea. I don't know. It wasn't my doing. It was done. I've done a couple of albums since, and I said, "Oh, can that get nominated?" But I've never really looked into the process. I know once it's through because I'm a member now. Once you win, you're a lifelong member, so I get the voting forms.
Oh, really?
And once things are nominated, once they've decided on the nominations, that must be the board, I guess. I then get a form and I vote for who I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know everything in every categories, but the categories I know, I understand. I vote. I try and do a bit of research and give the person who I think deserves it the most a tick.
And obviously, following that win, obviously you've always been so busy. But did you get like a huge influx of offers following your win?
No,
oh, really?
Not really. No, they often say that. I've heard that for years. If you win something, it doesn't really.
Yeah.
I think people think you're too busy or too expensive.
True.
No, there's a couple of shows that I've been involved with since, and they've made albums, and I had an opinion on the albums, and I thought, well, I'd like to be involved. As an orchestrator, you don't always get involved. Yeah. I haven't been, and I would have thought that they might have involved me, but they didn't. So there you go.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think winning an award is always a platform to get more. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me.
Bless you.
But I don't think it's always a platform to get more work. I'm not sure in the music industry, but maybe in the background it has. I don't know, but it certainly wasn't. Now you've won a Grammy, like the phone calls triple or something. I got a lot of nice feeling, a lot of nice messages, a lot of nice karma for sure.
Nice. And being like doing some different things like conductor, arranger, orchestrator, and so forth, do you find any particular job harder than the other, or they're all roughly the same for you?
No, I try to take on things that are that might stretch me, but things I can do. I get asked to do things sometimes, and I'm pretty nice to say, do you know what, someone else would be better for that job. Can I use your studio for this? Do you know what, you'd be better off going to that studio for what you want. I mean, I think you have to always try to be aware of your abilities and do what you do best, because we're working for the next job the whole time, and the best job I've ever done is hopefully the next one, is what I always say. So I like all the different things I'm involved with. I enjoy them all. I enjoy doing them all.
That's fantastic. Okay, I've got one more question actually before we go. Is how was the Honda advert? And I get asked that a million times, but how was it to work on?
Yeah, well, that was an amazing experience. That was something that I was asked to do, and I managed to come up with the right formula. And obviously I did other performances with the sound effects choir. It's disappeared a bit now. It's quite an expensive process because there's lots of people and time involved and filmmaking, and it's almost like making animation for film after that with the music. But the Honda Advert, yeah, that was a real learning curve. Really, I realised a lot about life, music, sounds, the way, displacement of air, the way things work, the world having pitch, time, rhythm, etc. That's a whole another sort of thesis, really. But that was great, and I haven't done one for a while. And funny enough, I had a call just a couple of weeks ago about a possible choir project, and it's something I'd like. I've been meaning to, in all my spare time, get involved with again. It's a really nice thing to do.
Oh, brilliant. I always love to finish on a really nice note like that. So I want to take this time to say thank you so much for today. It's really lovely to talk to you, Steve. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work, and I hope everyone out there is surviving. I think it's going to take a while, but I think we should all think of things are postponed, things are on hold rather than cancelled. They will come back, and it will be busier and stronger and better, and people will be more enthusiastic than ever. So hang in there, everyone, and keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. And how can people find you actually as well online?
I think, see, that here's where I'm quite rubbish. I have a lovely PA called Rachel who looks after most stuff, but website is www.stevesidwell.com, and there's a contact button on there. So stevesidwell.com, really easy to find. I'm always happy to, if anyone wants to ask me something. I get a few questions, and as you'd imagine and stuff, I do reply to everyone. I'd like to think I do anyway.
Oh, brilliant.
Didn't reply to me, but I think I did. I'm actually hoping to set up a YouTube channel next year as well. We're doing some little shows from my house is the idea, little work in progress things. So I'll let you know when it happens. You can give me a shout.
Oh, please, I mean, that'd be amazing. I'd love to.
Yeah.
But thank you so much again for the amazing episode, Steve. Really love to catch up with you.
You too, Georgio. You take care, mate.
You too. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.